This episode of Going in Raw is sponsored by Liquid IV. October is here, and that means the weather is getting cooler, football is on every weekend, and Halloween is nearly upon us.
And with so much to like about October, make sure you're at your best with Liquid IV's new Hydration Multiplier Plus Immune Support Mango Passion Fruit. 1 stick of Liquid IV and 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone, and with 5 times the daily value of vitamin C and 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, Hydration Multiplier Plus Immune Support gives you the scientifically formulated immune support you need.
So tear, pour, and live more and support everyday wellness with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code RAW at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code RAW at liquidiv.com. Hey, Friendo, Steve here.
Hey, Larson.
Welcome back to Going in Raw, the only pro wrestling podcast you need to be listening to. It's time. It's that time of week, Larson, where we're going to do some reactions to some hot takes. Only the hottest takes here at the Friendo Club, man.
Yeah, this is our Wednesday show now, so we do. What? My enthusiasm for hot takes is palpable, is it not?
My goodness, it's cold enthusiasm for some hot takes today.
Well, let's see if my enthusiasm can be warmed with the heat of these takes.
There you go. Got some metaphor for you. All right, man, let's go ahead and kick this off with Nick, who says, Solo Sikoa looking like a joke is 100% part of Triple H's long-term plan to make him a huge star.
So I think Solo looking like a joke or a pretender to the throne being tribal chief is intentional. I think that's the case in terms of serving the story they're telling now. Now, is it part of some grand plan that Triple H has to make Solo Sikoa the next Roman Reigns? I'm skeptical. I don't know if he necessarily has those designs on to book Solo in such a way. I don't know.
Let me ask you this. Well, before you continue, let me ask you this.
Sure.
Because if I'm reading between your lines here, because this is how I'm interpreting what you're saying.
Sure.
Triple H doesn't see the next Roman Reigns in Solo Sikoa because that is incredibly rarefied air.
It is, but I'm using Roman as an example because the take here says making Solo into a huge star.
Right, yeah.
And, not only is Solo established himself or inserted himself as tribal chief now, and, if the plan is to make him a huge star on the caliber of Roman, Cody.
A guy who can main event on a regular basis.
Who can be the face of the company. And we don't know. We don't know how Triple H views Solo or a variety of talent in terms of their long-term place in the company and his goals with them as it relates to his creative booking of said characters. So I half agree with this take in terms of Solo's booking now is intentional, and I think it's intentional because we as the audience is supposed to not view him as a legitimate tribal chief. Like I said, a pretender to the throne. I think they went a little too far about not having won any matches before he became tribal chief.
That was a problem. 0-34 was a problem.
That was a major problem. I mean, there's a situation where he can be not seen as a legitimate tribal chief while still being seen as a legitimate competitor. And I think they went too far in making him seem like not legitimate in either capacity.
So, okay, here's my thing. And I've agreed with you on the not having him win matches thing. I think there was a bit of a reset after WrestleMania where in between the Cena match and WrestleMania, he went on that extended losing streak where seemingly he did nothing but lose to LA Knight on the house show circuit. It's the house show circuit. I get it. It's basically for the local audience. You can debate whether or not the house show stuff is canon necessarily.
Even on TV, he wasn't winning though.
No, I know, but he was still presented as a threat. He seemed like a bigger threat as the enforcer to Roman's bloodline than he has as leader of his own bloodline.
Absolutely.
And that's largely been because they haven't really been showing him as this dominant force. And that might be intentional. I'll put it this way. And this is a very loose comparison. I think one of the best examples to look at for how Triple H, I think obviously Triple H would probably take a look at some people and be like, oh, I could see this person as face of the company, as opposed to other people. I don't really see them as face of the company. I think he sees Solo as like a really, really strong role player who might be able to evolve to that next level. I think as soon as he saw what Cody was doing in AEW, brought him over to WWE, he was like, oh, this guy could be Cena. This guy could be that guy. And then he's got his favorites like Gunther, who's like, I'm going to push this guy because I know how good he is. And I don't really give a damn what other people say. He's going to be a top guy. Getting back to Solo, I think if you look at like Dom Mysterio, who clearly gets some huge reactions, and I kind of feel like to a degree, I'm not going to say the sky is the limit for Dom Mysterio, but I think he's got a really high ceiling as a guy who could be a major player for a long time. I think he sees the same thing with Solo Sikoa. I think he sees a guy who could be a major player for a long time. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in the position that he's at right now. And I think the story that he's in is eventually going to get Solo to a really big place. I do. I think coming off as a pretender as the Fredo is going to help him in the future. I do.
Plus, I think that's the hope. You know, you don't put somebody in a major role in the A story in the company without the hope that they can deliver on their role and elevate themselves afterwards.
There is a matter of like being able to not see it until you have to see it. Like you put him out there, it's like, okay, well, this guy has shown that he has gotten crowd reactions while under Roman in that bloodline. But when I put him out there, it's a good gamble, but maybe he doesn't see it. And maybe he won't reach that height.
That's entirely possible too. That's why I say I'm kind of half agreeing with this because, you know, obviously you don't put him in this spot unless you think he can eventually elevate to, you know, a significant piece of what you're building, and that would be for the future. Mm-hmm. But it's by no means a guarantee, you know, and so I don't know if it's a situation where Triple H sees Solo as like face of the company right here, this guy.
Yeah.
It's you know, he's been main roster for what, 2 years, 2.5 years?
I think he just puts pieces into place and tries to build some, well, I think in certain situations, he just puts pieces into play and sees how far he can go with them based off of the stories and the performances. That's kind of all he can do, I think.
Yep. Next up here, hot take.
Hot take.
From Cinema Love 09 says Bryan Danielson is not a top 10, much less top 20 wrestler of all time.
Oh, you added this one. I left this one alone.
Why do you want to leave this one alone?
Because, I don't know. It seems, I don't know. It's
topical. It's topical. Bryan Danielson just finished his full-time wrestling career.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a nebulous thing anyways. He'll get his neck surgery. How often he's going to wrestle going forward, we don't know. We don't know.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is a subjective thing. For example, I don't get Jon Moxley as a wrestler. As an in-ring competitor, barring a few examples, he doesn't do much for me. And I can't exactly explain it other than say that I don't get invested in his matches.
A lot of people have said Danielson is a top 10 all-time guy. I don't know if I've ever heard anybody say Moxley's a top 10 guy.
You know, Mox is a wildly successful wrestler.
Oh, yeah, he's popular. Yeah, don't get me wrong.
He's got tons of fans. That's just one example. I'm not saying that Jon Moxley is the in-ring equivalent to Bryan Danielson. Far from it. It's just someone who's accomplished, popular, garnered a bunch of accolades, and yet whose in-ring style it's just not for me. So I'm saying I understand that it's a subjective thing. Great wrestlers or not great wrestlers.
Man, dude,
Larson,
this turn. Larson's hot take. Larson's hot take. Mox sucks.
It's not my favorite. That being said, Danielson is probably in my top 5 all-time wrestlers.
Come on, man. Come on. None of the subjective stuff. Come on. Definitive. We've been doing lists for literally 15 years. You know what they want? They want definitive.
All right, definitively, Bryan Danielson is one of the 5 best wrestlers to ever set foot in the wrestling ring, and I'll tell you why. I'll give you 3 reasons why. 1, he could put on a great match with anybody, regardless of style. He can wrestle a match with. He could do a lucha match. He can do a brawling match. He could do a high flying match. He could probably do a really good hardcore match. We saw that the strap match with Ricky Starks.
What
Fucking
star
great.
rating did you give the Mox Danielson match?
Dude, like we said, that was a Mox match. Danielson's not 100%. Come on.
All right. I'm having fun with you.
I was ready for that.
Okay.
I was waiting for that to happen. For me, it's two reasons why Danielson is one of the best. Like I said, he can wrestle a fantastic match in just about any style. Two, he has a way, whether heel or face, to get you as the viewer emotionally invested in his match. Like his strap match with Ricky Starks, they had one interaction before that match. One! Which was, I'm the replacement for CM Punk and we're having a strap match.
Yeah.
And then they made that match feel like the blow-off to a years-long blood feud. In my mind, and the credit for that also goes to Ricky Starks. In my mind, that's the genius of Bryan Danielson, is he can do that. Mm-hmm. In a situation especially like that, where it's short notice, it's 1 week before the match happens. The match is booked. And time and again, regardless of situation, regardless of story, he gets you, the viewer, invested in his matches.
So, walk me
Something
through
John
this.
Moxley doesn't do for me.
Walk me through this a little bit. Let's talk movies real quick.
Movies, all right.
A couple movies out there. I understand it's art, it's subjective, but I'm going to make a parallel here.
Sure.
Certain movies, there's a general consensus. There's some of the GOATs, right? We're talking
Citizen Kane, Godfather.
Thank you. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Then you got other movies that have penetrated the zeitgeist like nothing else, like the Star Wars, the Jaws, et cetera, right? The Matrix, right?
Lord of the Rings.
Okay. That's my Mox
Yeah, same.
of movies.
Same.
In wrestling, who's the Godfather? Who's the Citizen Kane? Sorry, not Charles Wright.
I know what you mean.
What wrestler is the Godfather? What wrestler is Citizen Kane? Because there's like different measures of what is good in pro wrestling. You know what I mean?
Well, there's also different measures of what is good in filmmaking. Some people
I know, but there's some of it's universal. Godfather, Citizen Kane. You know what I mean?
Well, I think so. But if there's someone who. There are probably people out there who will watch Citizen Kane and be like, boring.
Idiots, imbeciles, morons.
But my point
Low
is there is variability. Like people might understand that Citizen Kane might be important to the history of film, while viewing it be like, this is boring and I don't get it.
What are the ingredients that make up the Godfather of professional wrestling? Not the Ho Train. I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, all right. What's the thing that makes Godfather one of the seminal American films of all time? It's production, it's presentation.
Yeah.
It's characterization.
Okay.
It's the personalities, the characters involved, and how those personalities clash. That's where the drama comes from.
Mm-hmm. Timelessness.
Legacy. I was going to say legacy.
These are all kind of, that's such a long conversation.
It is.
Danielson, to me, I don't know, man. He kind of hits everything. He's one of the best in ring from a character perspective. And granted, I feel like too often under Vince, he wasn't allowed to do the full extent of the character. Like, I'm shocked that Vince let him do the Planet's Champion stuff, because that was brilliant.
The best work of at least his WWE career was Planet's Champion stuff. That stuff.
The heel stuff with Kane was awesome. Dude, Danielson to me is he's like the Godfather of professional wrestling, because here's the thing about Godfather also, that movie's entertaining as shit. I could sit there and watch it on a loop and never get bored. The scenes are so addictive to watch. And Danielson's kind of that to me. I mean, I think I disagree with this take. I think he is high up there. But then if people are like, nah, it's Stone Cold, it's The Rock, it's whatever. All right, well, Stone Cold at his peak of popularity anyways was like he was actually a really good wrestler before he got his neck injured. But when he had to adapt and become a brawler, like in ring, he had a couple of really good matches, obviously. Yeah. But you know, I don't know, man. I think Punk is also up there for me. Punk is also one of those guys who, unless he's really spinning his wheels, compelling to watch, always leaves it out there in the ring. And they're sort of in that same class, you know, Punk and Danielson, in my opinion. Those are dudes, those are guys to me that are like, those are above the rest. But then I understand that people are like, oh no, Hogan be a GOAT because like he was really popular and in wrestling, you know, but that's boxing.
Well, I think also too, there's a nostalgia factor there where,
oh sure, yeah,
you know, people grew up watching wrestling in the Hogan era, have so many memories tied to that. It's hard to separate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
You know, and look at it through the prism of today's wrestling world and see, well, like Hogan, he's not a very good worker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
Not. He's kind of a crap wrestler.
Yeah,
in ring. Mm-hmm. Got by a lot on personality.
I think Macho Man.
You have a wildly successful wrestling career being a personality.
Macho Man might be up there for me too.
Yeah, Macho Man was great.
Because you can't look away from the guy, and in the ring he was really good too.
He could go. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I get it though. He's maybe not for everybody. Not like you said, dude. Not everybody's into Citizen Kane. Some people would rather have Jaws with the big, you know. Well, Jaws is great too. So I don't even talk
Jaws
shit
is a
about
really
Jaws.
well-made movie. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah.
Anyways, before we continue on with these other hot takes, Larson, let's go ahead and pay some bills.
Let's do it. Let's take a quick break here. Get word from sponsor today's show, Liquid IV. You know, Steve.
Yeah.
There's a lot to like about October. We got cooler weather.
Mm-hmm.
Weekend football.
Yes.
Halloween.
Oh yeah.
And perhaps more importantly for us, start of the professional basketball season.
That's correct, Larson. Not to mention our year-long never-ends basketball season is still in full swing, and to play our best, we need to be at our best. And with Liquid IV's new Hydration Multiplier Plus Immune Support Mango Passion Fruit, we get 5 times the daily value of vitamin C and 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, so our body gets the immune support it needs.
Oh yeah. Powered by Live Hydra Science, 1 stick of Liquid IV and 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone and is an essential part of our semi-weekly basketball games. I don't know if I could continuously, and I mean at will, hit 1 3-pointer after another in your face, or 1 step-back half-court shot after another at will for 2 straight hours, twice a week without Liquid IV. What, you got something to say?
You didn't write me a retort here, so no, I don't.
Well, the floor is yours.
No, just keep on going.
Now, with Hydration Multiplier Plus Immune Support, we can also get scientifically formulated support for healthy immune systems and all-in-one hydration.
So tear, pour, and live more, and turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration and support everyday wellness with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code RAW at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code RAW at liquidiv.com. The opinions expressed in this ad about Larson's basketball skills are strictly those of him and do not reflect reality. End ad.
Anyways, I hit that step back half court shot.
Okay, no, cool. I already did. Yeah, it is actually pretty nice. Let's move on to our next hot take here. You're high because I'm dope, says. I still can't see Darby Allin as a credible world champion. I understand and appreciate that he bumps like a maniac, but he's a demolition derby Darby at a monster truck rally. It's fun to watch, but it's not there. It's not what you're there to see.
So when we had that conversation about...
Hold on a second. So people don't go to monster truck rallies for the demolition derbies?
Aren't those 2 separate events?
Damned if I know, but I don't know. Maybe there are
I
people
thought monster
who go.
truck. You have Bigfoot doing the thing on the cars. You have the robotic dinosaur thing with the flamethrower and eating the cars.
Demolition derby is just a bunch of cars. Aren't they like
smashing into each other?
Are they just smashing into, or are they like a race smashing into each other?
I think it's just more. I mean, there might be a race component, but for sure, there's a lot of smashing into each other.
Okay, yeah, man. I don't know.
There might be a battle of attrition, the demolition derby. Anyways, we had the conversation about the formulaic nature of Darby's matches against. This wasn't something we specified, though we should. Opponents larger than him.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Where he gets his ass beat for.
There aren't a whole lot of opponents smaller than him, buddy.
Well, But in AEW, there's a few that are roughly the same size.
Yeah, they don't do those a lot though. He likes.
Well,
those
they
big
do.
dude
Like
matches.
he's had matches against opponents that aren't, several inches taller and many pounds heavier.
Lately, it's been like him versus monsters though, or him versus like normal sized dudes anyway.
But anyway, someone pointed out in the comments to one of our videos that we neglected to talk about the matches against wrestlers like
Phoenix.
Phoenix.
Okay.
Orange Cassidy. I'm just putting names out there of
Like
wrestlers
Jungle Boy, maybe, yeah.
of comparable size.
Okay, yeah.
And that his matches then don't fit into the same formula, which is true.
Sure.
That's absolutely true. So, but getting back to this question, it's obvious that Darby has forged a connection with the AEW fan base, and I think if he were to win the championship, I think the fan base as a whole would not be upset about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he's
right.
a relatively popular performer in the universe of AEW.
Yeah.
And one potential upside of the formulaic nature of his matches, especially against larger opponents, is that you can never count him out.
Mm-hmm.
Because more often than not, he finds a way to pull the match out, which, when you're booking him, as they often do, as the underdog, endears him to the audience. So, I mean, again, it's a subjective thing. If Darby walked out of Revolution beating Mox with that title belt, and they told an interesting story and put on a hell of a match, a Darby match, not a Mox match, Darby match, then I would buy it. I would have no issue with Darby winning the title. Go back and watch his first reign as TNT champion, because we saw a lot of the same things there when he was wrestling opponents roughly the same size. He knows how to wrestle.
Yeah.
I think he was a high school wrestler or something like that. He knows how to wrestle. And when he has to wrestle someone larger than himself, yeah, he gets thrown around a lot. And if it's done creatively and his comeback is interesting, it could still be effective. But really pay attention, especially the moment Steve always talks about, when he lost. And if he has a world title reign, I'm not saying he has to follow the same pattern as that first TNT title reign, but if he wins the world championship, it's like, I need to be the face of AEW and wrestle all the time. That is kind of what he did with his first TNT title reign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was his story. He burned himself out.
His body gives out trying to defend the honor of AEW.
Yeah.
That unto itself is a potentially interesting story.
So my bigger issue with Darby, it has nothing to do with his size, it has nothing to do with his wrestling skills, because I've found a lot of his matches a ton of fun, and pretty well told stories. I do think that he has fallen into a bit of a rut in terms of like, another big guy, let me go and throw myself around. Even the Jack Perry match was him getting killed by Jack Perry, and then that was it. My bigger problem is like his promos are kind of boring. And I feel like he can add a little bit of mystique to his stuff, because I love the little short films that he does. Mm-hmm. And I love when he keeps things really short on the mic. The less he says, the more effective he is. When he starts a promo with, remember that time we were in the Independence? I tune out, because I know that there's a whole ass story coming on, and I've heard this story a million times. I get it. You lived in your car. It sucks. Okay. That being said, if he dials that way back, the thing about Darby that he's got going for him is that he does come across as true, as genuine as it gets. That shtick could so easily devolve into poser territory.
Oh, yeah.
But he comes across as incredibly genuine. It's just he hasn't found a way to tell, and not many people can. He hasn't really found a way to tell a story over the span of 7 minutes on the microphone that keeps me engaged and keeps me wanting to continue to listen to what he has to say. If he can work on that, and maybe some of that will simply come with age, because the older you get, the more life experience you have, and you can draw from more than just, hey,
just more reps too.
Yeah, instead of at one point I was poor and I was living in the car. So yeah, I don't know. I think that fuck it. You got a big ass deal, so why not put the strap on him? Go ahead and do it. I think the roof will explode if he beats Mox, especially given how Mox is booked these days. And if they tell a compelling story in the ring, I think it'll be great. Carson Gillis here. has a similar gripe about a completely different character. The final boss. Throw your L's up for the final boss. There you go. Says The Rock needs to go away and stay away. The final boss gimmick is stale, unless it's to get buried by Cody at Mania in 5 minutes or less. I do not want a main event on night 2 of WrestleMania, Carson Gillis. That is 5 minutes long. Add a 4 to the beginning of that, and now we're talking.
Wow. You really want 45 minutes of Cody versus The Rock?
No, 20 will do, though. You could do 20. With entrances, it'll be a half hour.
Yeah.
Bunch of overbooked bullshit. Here's the thing. How can something grow stale when we only got a little bit of it? We got that great build to WrestleMania with all those awesome 20-minute promos where he's doing this shit and saying, off is the direction in which you can fuck. Don't call that Doug Farrow. Call him shithead. That's his name. That's gold, Jerry.
It's good stuff.
That's gold.
It's good stuff.
And I'll take more of that for this year's WrestleMania.
Yeah, now if it was The Rock doing that every week,
I'd be eating good.
Yeah, maybe. But to say that the final boss gimmick has gotten stale when he's been on TV once in the last 6 months, and that was just to stand at the ramp and count to 3. No, I don't think it's gotten stale.
That being said, like I did a WrestleJuice video where I was like, oh yeah, The Rock versus Cody, this shit should happen. Boy, comments did not like the idea of him winning the title.
No, I'm not surprised.
Really? Is that a
I'm
sentiment you've seen?
No.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. I think the whole idea of part-timers, people who are on the full-time roster winning world championships, I think this kind of, as
puts
a whole, is an
off,
unpopular is a whole unpopular opinion.
You need to get over that shit, man. Because here's the thing. You got two really good. Look, they booked Gunther great, and even if it's not Gunther on Raw, there's a ton of people there who'd be there every single week doing the workhorse shit on Netflix. And then you can have The Rock showing up 5 times a year with the world title. Come on, man. Anyways.
I understand the perspective. I'm saying I don't think that's a popular one.
Oh, it's not. It's definitely not. And I understand it, too. I get it. We had bad experiences with Brock Lesnar and that shit.
Mm-hmm.
Daywalker here says, Braun Strowman not winning the title when he was first getting hot was such a missed opportunity.
So I saw this earlier, and I was thinking about it.
Mm-hmm, sure.
If Vince wasn't so hung up on the idea of Roman having his coronation moment against Brock and just told a really interesting story, which they did a great job of booking Braun versus Roman, their feud. It was a lot of fun.
2017, it was good stuff.
They were just destroying shit all over the place, and it was wildly entertaining. Now, if that same feud or something comparable, whether in 2017 or somewhere down the line, with Braun and Roman involved a title, and it's not so much, Vince having Roman go out there and with all these ridiculous promos he wrote for him, and just letting Roman do cool stuff with Braun.
Yeah.
Guess what? They'll both get over.
Yeah.
Huge.
Big time.
And so I don't disagree with this. If in 2017, if when he was feuding with Roman or shortly thereafter, if they put the belt on Braun, that's as well as they have booked Braun Strowman probably during his entire run in WWE.
Yeah, I agree.
And he was getting over.
He was. Yeah, he was getting over big time.
You know how you don't get him as a main eventer? When they booked how they booked him when
the Money in the Bank stuff.
Yeah, the Money in the Bank stuff when Brock threw the Money in the Bank briefcase up the ramp.
Yeah, that was pretty stupid. That was pretty bad. No, I agree with this, man. I think that Braun was getting supremely over. I think if they had even found a fun way to sort of loop the Wyatt family stuff into that as well, because that's how he started out. I think that could have been really cool. There was a number of things they could have done, and yeah, maybe a missed opportunity, but eventually he got, I think the Universal Championship. And that was really cool. It seemed validating for the guy. He seems like a decent guy. Feel bad for his knees.
Yeah, I know.
AJ Files. It's the AJ Files. AJ Styles? AJ Lee? I wonder what AJ Francis says. AEW could use a brand split. Are you a fan of the brand split for AEW?
Here's a situation where I think I might be.
Yeah.
So with Rampage getting canceled and they have this Shockwave show that may or may not be on Fox, I saw this on social media. I don't remember the source of it, but someone essentially said Dynamite has their own roster, Shockwave has their own roster, and Collision is the nexus with where they may overlap a little bit.
Oh, it's brand warfare episode weekly.
Well, not exactly brand warfare, but if someone wants to work Wednesday and Saturday, they're on the Dynamite and Collision schedule. Someone wants to work whatever day of the week Shockwave is on, and Saturday they're on the Collision schedule.
Okay, all right. Yeah, there's a lot of people there. I sort of alternate, to be honest with you. I'll put it this way. Back when you had Punk as the anchor with that real world shit back there, I thought it was an awesome idea. I'm like, you know what? Put Starks, Hobbs, Thunder Rosa, Miro, people who apparently... The thing is, it's not going to work. It's not going to function as a Band-Aid for a massive locker room morale issue. That was never going to work. That was silly to even consider.
Yeah.
I think it absolutely could have worked if Punk is serious about, for example, wanting to, be the guy to take over creative on NXT and develop the future. I think it absolutely could have worked if everybody was really sort of, on the same page and happy. I think having a big name like Punk there, I think that could have worked, and I would have been interested in seeing it. Malachi Black, another name that seemingly was just going to be on Collision. I mean, that's what House of Black basically is on Collision. So I think in a universe it could have worked. And I think, I don't know, to a degree, like you got to ask yourself, is it necessary right now? It doesn't seem necessary right now. Like they barely booked the tag division decently. There's one
issue,
world championship and like what, I don't know, 5 legitimate world title guys there.
Yeah.
Like that's a good solid single one brand division right there.
I mean, I guess the worry too then if depending on the length of Shockwave, is it an hour, is it 2 hours? Another 2 hours. That's 2 more hours of TV Tony Khan has to book. It's doubtful he even has the bandwidth to book the 4 hours he'll have after Rampage is canceled. You know what I mean? It seems like there's a limit to how much he can dedicate to all his responsibilities across Jaguars, Fulham, and AEW. And adding another 2 hours of TV on top of Collision and Dynamite plus Ring of Honor.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
You could say, in theory, relieve some of the pressure on Dynamite. You have 2 A shows, depending on the time slot for Shockwave. And you could tell more stories. Or the problem is, there's more opportunities to tell stories, but the end result is the stories are kind of more watered down because there's not the creative energy being put into them that they require, if it's a bandwidth issue.
Yeah, dude. And that's a reality that you have to factor in. Ideally, if they did a brand split, you would hope that there would be some delegation of responsibility, and each show would be given a lot of creative energy. But yeah, it's spotty at best these days. Sometimes there's like this current story that got going on. You and I both understand it's only going to be as good. That moment there at the end of Wrestle Dream is only going to looked back on, depending on what happens next.
Yep.
And they have not always been, whether it's through their own fault or injuries, not their fault, not Tony's fault, they haven't always been able to follow through on stuff. So, I mean, it would you're absolutely right. It would depend on that. Ideally, if they gave it a bunch of creative energy, if that's our starting point, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I think the time that it would have worked, I think is past.
Yeah, maybe. Cameron Shank here says, Bruno Sammartino is the Wilt Chamberlain of WWE. Both hold records that will likely never be broken, but neither will consistently be in the GOAT conversation. Their names are brought up, but not really seriously discussed.
So we often refer to Roman or Cena or Hogan or whatever as we talk about Roman because of the length of his title run. More often than not, he's referred to as, in our orbit, the Bruno of the modern day. That does seem to be specifically looked at or referenced within the context of a dominant title reign. Mm-hmm. And dominance over opponents, which sort of go hand in hand.
Well, it's length too,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That being said, I don't know if anybody looks back on Bruno's in-ring, his presentation, and his promos as this guy was the best. It was things were just a lot different back then. Same could be said for Wilt Chamberlain. So, yeah, I mean, to a degree, I agree with this, but it's hard not to say, given that being the main event draw for such a long period of time in one of the biggest markets in the country, it's hard not to consider him one of the GOATs. I think that his name is considered. It's just we don't have a lot to go on because we've never really seen much of the guy.
Yeah, exactly. And to appreciate one's accolades within the context of the time it occurred, I think you have to consider that when talking about, if for example, Wilt Chamberlain dominated the NBA during the breadth of his career, set some records that will, as Cameron here, will never be broken. No one's going to probably score ever 100 points in a game ever again.
No.
Some have gotten close, but not close enough.
Some claim that it didn't happen too.
I know. But granted, at the time, like apparently Wilt is like an incredible athlete. Like he was a long jumper. Arnold said that he was stronger, that Wilt was stronger than him.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So it's not simply a situation where he was just taller than everybody and was dominating. He was a top tier athlete.
Sure. Yeah.
And seemingly not just within the context of his time, it's just kind of period.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And so, there's always that story I heard where there was like some Hall of Fame event. And Michael Jordan is talking to Wilt Chamberlain. They're arguing about who's the best.
Yeah.
And they could both be right.
Yeah.
Because in his day, no one was as dominant. You can even say within the history of the NBA, no single player has ever been as dominant as Wilt was in his era.
Yeah, Wilt
and you can't take that away and be like, well, he was playing against a bunch of guys who in the offseason were selling used cars.
Yeah. People make the same claim about Jordan these days, too.
Yeah, they do.
They're like, he fought against,
he was guarded by a plumber. I know.
Right, exactly.
They make the same thing. They make the same case. And it's a continual thing where people will see that across the board in terms, let's just use a basketball metaphor, but I think it applies to pro wrestling too, that the level of athleticism and skill in the NBA right now is probably greater than it's ever been.
Yeah, right.
And you can say the same thing for wrestling. The in-ring product in terms of the athleticism and skill, best it's ever been. But just because of that doesn't diminish, I think, the achievements of Ric Flair in-ring, specify in-ring.
Yeah.
A lot of the great wrestlers of years past, Ric Flair did like the same 5 things over and over again, sometimes for an hour.
Yeah.
But he sold out basically every show, and he did it 7 days a week, sometimes having 8 matches.
Yeah.
A lot of them an hour long.
Yeah.
And just because he was not or is not the athletic equal of Will Ospreay doesn't diminish his achievements.
All right, we got to wrap it up with this last one because I got to get going. Tariq H says, super hot take, that Crown Jewel Championship is beautiful. 50,000 carats of diamonds.
How much do you think that title cost to make?
15,000.
15,000?
Yeah, that's my guess. I don't know what 50,000 carats and diamonds is worth, but
a lot more than that.
You probably, yeah, but I don't know if it's.
I think like a 3-carat diamond is probably 15,000.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Would you agree or disagree? The Crown Jewel Championship is beautiful.
It's just a lot. It's humongous. There's a lot of shiny things on there. It's just a lot to take in.
It's way too much. It's way too much. And it's not particularly, it doesn't come together, in my opinion. It doesn't come together as a wrestling title.
It's very opulent.
It is opulent. Too opulent, in my opinion.
Too opulent for Steve. Over opulent for Steve.
Anyways, that's going to do it for Hot Takes. Be sure to sub to the channel. Hit that notify bell so you always know when we got our Hot Take threads going up.
Yes.
Till next time, we'll see you guys around.
Goodbye.
Get the Friendo Club set up today and get access to over 700 Going in Raw bonus episodes, our monthly Big Blue predictions challenges, and the ability to ask questions at Going in Raw. We also offer the Steven Larson comic book and exclusive Friendo Club t-shirt. Just hit join here at youtube.com/Steven Larson or go to patreon.com/Steven Larson to sign up.